Hi, this is Pat Kiggins, the Veterans Mentor. Over the years, I've written many articles on Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and other patriotic holidays. Like many Americans, I spent part of my day in solitary thought. As I always do, I began by thanking God for all of the brave men and women who've given their lives serving our country and protecting our freedoms. Now, it sounds almost trite to say it that way, but I sincerely respect the honor of all who have died protecting our nation. Next, I said a prayer for those who have served our nation but didn't die in battle. My dad is an excellent example of those that I prayed for. My dad was really an American war hero, but sadly, I never learned of his heroics until after he passed. Besides having the distinction of being the pilot who led the very last combat mission of World War II, I have since learned that he once had to make a critical decision after completing one of his bombing missions. His plane was badly shot up, and he had to make a decision to either ditch the plane and have his crew bail out over France or try to make it back to England. His crew all voted to return to England. He was able to coax the plane back to England and landed, but as soon as the crew was walking away from the plane on the tarmac, the plane exploded. It almost sounds like something out of a war movie. One of my brothers has since made friends with one of my dad's crew members. To this day, he credits my dad with saving his life. Next, my attention turned to the men under my command who lost their lives in combat. They're always going to have a special place in my heart. Of course, every time I think of them, I also have to remember the circumstances about their deaths. I guess those are the demons that I still have to carry around. This year, I paid a special tribute to those who served with me who were severely wounded. Those were the guys who were medevaced to a field hospital initially, but then were further evacuated to places like Okinawa or Japan to receive better care for their wounds. These were the guys that I never saw again once they got on that initial helicopter. I started to wonder if any of their names appear on a wall in Washington, D.C. My sincere hope is that all of them survived their wounds and have lived to have productive lives and are in good health today. Finally, I thought of all the veterans who went to war, fought our battles, kept us safe, and yet died on their own battlefield. So many of our vets end up taking their own life long after their battle overseas. The first person that I thought of was the father of my stepchildren, Stephen and Lexine. He was their biological dad. While I never did get to meet Buddy in person, I did get to speak to him a couple of times on the phone. My heart still aches over that tragedy. All of those veterans should be included in your prayers on Memorial Day. Now, I know that God had a plan for me simply because He protected me so many times. Of course, most people who know me are aware of the fact that I was wounded 7 times while in Vietnam. What most people don't know, however, is how many other times that God was watching out for me. A couple of years ago, my sister Mary sent me an article that she found online when she was Googling me. It was an article in the 25th Division newspaper about how a young girl came up to my platoon one day when we were out on patrol. Through our interpreter, she told us that the night before she had seen Viet Cong planting mines around her village. She was able to help us avoid all of the mines and lead us safely back to our fire support base. She even led a team of engineers back to the site so that all of the mines could be exploded. I shudder to think what would have happened to me if God hadn't placed that little girl in my life right at the time that I needed her most. Without her, I might just be one of the people that you're praying for today. My closing thought on this Memorial Day is that every time I look in the mirror, I'm reminded of how God's hand saved me to carry out His grander plan. You see, I still have a slight bump on my forehead that never went away. Here's what happened. I was out walking across a rice paddy while leading my platoon on a routine patrol. The next thing I remember, I woke up in a field hospital. I was lying on a gurney completely naked with an IV stuck in my arm. It seems that I was hit by the first bullet of an ambush. That bullet hit my helmet right next to my lieutenant bar. It ended up lodging between my steel pot and my helmet liner. The force of that bullet knocked me unconscious. I'm told that I laid out in that rice paddy for over an hour while a firefight raged. At the end of that fight, my platoon sergeant called a medevac for me and told them to bring a body bag so that they could send my remains back to my family. But when they reached me, I was still alive, so they shipped me off to the hospital. I woke up with a, as Bernie Sanders would say, huge headache. I was dehydrated, so they replaced all of my fluids with the IV. When I arrived, they took off all my clothes to see where I was wounded, but they couldn't find any holes in my body. Now, I never got a Purple Heart for that one, but sometimes when I think about it, it makes me shiver more than the times that when I really was wounded. Without God's hand watching over me, I would certainly be one of the people that you pray for on Memorial Day. Instead, I'm here and I get to reflect along with all of you. I thank God that I've had the opportunity to raise an amazing family, and I'm especially looking forward to the 4th of July so I can celebrate my very first grandchild. God bless America. This is Pat Kiggins, the Veterans Mentor. If you really like the articles that I've been creating in video format, let me know at patkiggins.com or at veteransmentor.com. Thanks for listening.